Good morning! Thanks for spending a few moments with me. My name is Jeff, and I'm here to talk about a movie of questionable quality. But first, a thank you to all those people out there who let me know my YouTube thumbnail was in error last week. I wrote POS people, and while POS might have been the right way to talk about the film we were doing, it should have been POD people, obviously, because the movie was Pod People. And, well, you see, last Sunday, at the last minute, I realized I had forgot to make a thumbnail image and I rushed it. Now I told those people who left me a comment that I was being stupid, and I meant it because, let's face it, it would have taken me 15 seconds to look at it and realize I was in error, and I failed to do so. And yes, that makes me stupid, but oh well, that's just me. Today I'm going to talk about a film that was first shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000 on June 29th, 1991. It's a 1973 science fiction television pilot called Stranded in Space. It was originally titled The Stranger, and it was directed by Lew Katzin and starring Glenn Corbett, Cameron Mitchell, Susan Akers, Lew Ayres, and many others. This was the Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode in which Joel turns the SOL into a carnival shooting gallery. During the invention exchange, both Joel and the Mads introduce variations on the old Bang flag gun, and Joel and the bots pretend to be evil men out to kill the classic TV detectives. An astronaut becomes a fugitive on an Earth-like planet. The planet he uncovered has a twin to Earth, but so ominously different. Okay, I don't have a poster because this was a made-for-TV movie. The best I could do were these two ads from the day. But since I don't have a lot to talk about, I thought I'd read a quick review I found of the movie from back in 1973. A familiar stranger comes for a visit. Best bet. There seems to be nothing original being offered as TV pilots. Witness The Stranger on Monday night at the movies. It's a good enough science fiction adventure, but it is reminiscent of a very good Patrick McGoohan series of a few years back, The Prisoner. Here, Glenn Corbett plays an American astronaut who, after a problem with his ship, wakes up isolated in a hospital. Okay, I'm a huge fan of The Prisoner. I've probably watched every episode a dozen times, and I see no connection between the film I watched today and that classic TV series. So sorry, reviewer from 1973, you're totally wrong. There's no connection. Let's move on. Now, this film was another one bought by Film Ventures International. Now, is it me or did MST3K use a lot of films from Film Ventures International? Anyway, in the film shown on Mystery Science Theater for the opening and closing credits, they use shots of Prisoner of the Lost Universe, a film that would later be riffed on riff tracks. The film we are watching today is the original The Stranger from TV, and I don't know if there's a difference between that and what was shown on Mystery Science Theater, but there you go. Now, for those new to the show, while I'm talking about a film that was first shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000, I'm more talking about the film itself and not so much about how the film was treated by Joel and the bots. Though, stick around to the end, I do show a little best of the MST3K episode. Now, I really don't have a lot to say about this film's production. I mean, it was a failed television pilot, and not a lot of people are talking about it. There's no information about it at all out there, so it definitely has the look and feel of the 1970s, that's for sure. The film was originally produced by Bing Crosby Productions. Bing Crosby Productions was founded in the late 1940s by actor Bing Crosby to produce films and TV series. They, of course, produced his own failed show, The Bing Crosby Show, in 1946, but also went on to produce shows like Ben Casey, which lasted from 1961 to 1966, Breaking Point from 1963 to 1964, and the classic Hogan's Heroes from 1965 to 1971. By the time of this film, Bing Crosby really had no involvement with the company anymore. I think it was sold off by then. And apparently the company went out of business in 1979 after the failure of The Great Santini. Now, the idea for The Stranger wasn't totally an original idea. In 1969, a film called Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, or Doppelganger, had a very similar plot. It was written and produced by Gary and Sylvia Anderson, who you might know are the ones who created the Super Marionation shows like Stingray and Thunderbirds, as well as live-action shows like UFO and Space 1999. The Stranger was directed by Lew Katzin. Leo was an American film director who lived from 1935 to 2002. He did a lot of television, both TV shows and made-for-TV films, and he also directed a few theatrical films such as Whatever Happened to Aunt Alice, a film produced by Robert Ulrich, who created the 1962 horror film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So I'm assuming the title was supposed to capitalize on that. And a few of his other films were the 1971 Steve McQueen film Lamaze and something called World Gone Wild in 1988 starring Bruce Dern, Michael Paré, and Catherine Mary Stewart. I might have to look up that one. Glenn Corbett plays our hero, NASA astronaut Neil Stryker. Glenn lived from 1933 to 1993. He was mostly a TV actor, appearing in many shows from the 1960s through the 1980s. He starred in the shows It's a Man's World from 1962 to 1963, Route 66 from 1963 to 1964, and the soap opera The Doctors from 1976 to 1981. Sharon Acker plays Dr. Benita Cook, a woman who falls for our hero, yet is still loyal to the New World Order. Sharon was a Canadian film, stage, and television actress and model who lived from 1935 to 2023. She appeared in a couple of films, but she is another mostly TV actor. The biggest thing she ever did, I guess, was to star in a soap opera called Texas from 1980 to 1982. Lew Ayres is Professor Dylan McCauley. Lew was an American actor whose career spanned 65 years. Lew lived from 1908 to 1996. He is probably most famous for playing Dr. James Kildare in 9 Dr. Kildare films, and he also starred in a classic film that may be of some interest to this group, Donovan's Brain from 1953. And then, of course, there's Cameron Mitchell, who plays Benedict, the leader of the New World Order. Cameron lived from 1918 to 1994. The thing about Cameron was he started out as a very serious actor and then moved into films. But somewhere along the way, in the 1960s and into the 1970s, he, I guess, began to take his career maybe less seriously, moving into TV and exploitation films. I mean, he appeared in many MST and RiffTrax films, such as Supersonic Man from 1979, Frankenstein Island from 1981, Deadly Prey from 1987, and Space Mutiny from 1977. And he was also in 1978's The Toolbox Murders, 1979's The Silent Scream, 1982's Raw Force, 1987's Whisper to a Scream, and so many more. Maybe one day I'll do a whole episode on Cameron Mitchell. Anyway, what is The Stranger? We start out with 3 astronauts in a space capsule. While watching, I could only think that this was pretty economical filmmaking. Just one tiny set with this cheesy exterior shot. Not quite 2001, you know, but back to the film. The 3 men seem to be having some problems.
Everything else all right up there?
Aside from the fact we're not 100% sure we're on the right trajectory, everything's great.
Roger. We'll keep in touch.
Is it me or all 3 of these the same guy? They could be brothers. You know, back in the 1970s, the budget for television movies was, well, lacking. When trouble happens to the ship, let's see how a made-for-TV movie handles the crash.
Juicy.
So
Yeah, I don't know, but it set off our communications alarms. Try and get them reset, Steve. I'll see if we still have voice with mission control. Houston, this is Patriot. Do you read me?
You know what's going on up there? This is Houston. Go ahead, Patriot. Patriot, can you read?
So it appears that only one astronaut, Neil Stryker, survived, and he's in a hospital. But quickly, he begins to suspect something is wrong.
Then I can get out of here soon.
Soon? It's not as though it were a prison, you know.
What would you call it, Dr. Revere? The 2 weeks I've been here, I haven't been allowed outside this room. I can't have visitors, use the telephone, or read a newspaper. I've been cut off from the outside world, and you tell me it's not like I'm in prison.
Could he be in a Russian hospital?
You вам не верю.
I'm sorry.
You don't speak Russian, Doctor?
No, I never had time to learn another language.
We meet Benedict, the leader of the New World Order. It seems at night they do experiments on Neil to learn everything he knows about space travel. But soon Neil has had enough and tries to escape. Run, Neil, run! I won't ask how he got out of that one, and it's good that the bullet he took in the side isn't slowing him down at all. What luck, a locker filled with clothes. And he meets a woman.
I won't tell anyone you're here. He's in there, in the lab.
A lying woman.
Benedict. Fire.
Do you think they got our man with their guns? If so, this is the shortest TV movie in history. Of course they didn't. And look at the clothes, a perfect fit. He picked just the right locker. Of course, Neil still thinks he's on Earth, so he goes to make a phone call.
Well, I have no listing for a Cape Kennedy.
You've got to. It's a space center outside of Orlando.
I'm afraid we have no Orlando.
It's in Florida.
I see no Florida listed.
After he hitches a ride, before the commercial break, there are a few clues letting him know that he's not on his home planet.
Where you headed?
Those moons.
What about him?
Do they always look like that?
There's a long meeting in which the perfect new order discuss what to do with the Stryker situation. Some want him to be taken alive, but Benedict, he wants him dead, and he tells us why.
Today, 1 man. Tomorrow, 10. In a week, 1,000. In a month, an epidemic.
This is the perfect new order, and all must agree with Benedict. And if you're thinking out there that this world, called Terra, is exactly like Earth, you are wrong. The people of Terra are different.
Hurt your hand?
What?
The only time I ever see people use their right hands is when they've hurt their left.
Yeah, I sprained my wrist. It's still a little sore.
Happened to me, I'd starve to death.
The people of Terra are all left-handed. Let's turn on the radio to hear the perfect new order news. Hey, it's about Neil, so it's time he gets going. On the run, all alone, in a place so familiar, yet so strange. Now we get a long scene in which Neil has audio flashbacks to all the stuff we had already seen.
What about him?
They always look like that.
Hurt your hand?
What?
The only time I ever see people use their right hands is when they've hurt their left.
Stryker may have sustained a wound in escaping from the hospital.
Finally, Neil has an idea. Look at that, a bookstore. Information. Good thinking, Neil.
This only goes back about 35 years.
That's right.
But you said from the beginning.
Yes, from the beginning of the perfect order. Well, of course, Terra had history before that. You're too young to remember that. It had its bad times and good. People seem to laugh a lot more in those days.
No history before the perfect new order. Dang it. Do you think it's odd that this bookstore owner just let a stranger relax in his apartment?
Department of Medical Assistance, please. Citizens Welfare number W9845.
See, that's the problem of being in another world. You don't know who to trust. What a coincidence. It's that same lady from the hospital. Her name is Dr. Benita Cook. What are the odds, right? Seems almost unbelievable. Benita tells him that he should turn himself in, and Neil agrees to it.
Turn left up ahead.
The hospital's the other way.
That's right.
You said you were going to turn yourself into Dr. Revere.
I lied. Turn.
No.
Now, Neil, you are representing Earth. I know you're scared, but lying will give Earth a bad name. And I know she lied to you earlier, but you know, 2 wrongs, that type of thing. What did she do? Ah, the old let's pretend to kiss gag.
You're mistaken.
Is this wound a mistake? Are those men chasing me a mistake? Even if I am insane, is this what the perfect order does to insane people?
Sometimes it takes a stranger to make one see the truth.
The radio.
What?
The two-way radio. I left it on in the car so they'd find us.
Oh, now he is in trouble, and the chase is on. And this goes on for quite a while. You see, this was made for television, and back in those days, you needed to fill the entire 2-hour time slot minus commercials. And if the helicopter blowing up looks fake, again, this is a 1970s TV movie. And for a quick history lesson, when the music builds and then the scene fades to black, that means it's time for a commercial. Lucky for us, we don't have to deal with commercials.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir. No, sir, I won't be delayed. We all have to answer to someone, Henry.
And isn't that the truth? Now, Benita has finally begun to believe the stranger, so she brings him to someone who could help her, Professor Dylan McCauley. And since Benita believes him, so does the professor.
Well, you've convinced this beautiful child that anything at all exists outside the perfect order. You must be telling the truth.
So this is the council for the leaders of the perfect new order. It looks impressive, yes, but to actually do work, it looks a little dark, right? But you know the biggest problem with the perfect new order? Those suits that they are all wearing. Yikes, that could be a cause for a rebellion right there. See, the Stryker affair has really put the pressure on Benedict.
The Stryker affair.
I assume full responsibility for his escape.
Same trees, flowers. It's like a dream.
Or a great way to save money on sets. Both worlds evolved so exactly that people not only talk the same language, but the cars are identical. Most of the cars in the film are Chryslers, by the way. Chryslers, for you youngsters, was one of the big three car manufacturers back in the day.
How did this perfect order come about?
Well, it seems we closed our eyes for a little while, and when we opened them again, it was here.
Message, people, message. And we go on and on about how oppressive this new order is, and how anyone who opposes them disappears. So while a friend of Benita is being interrogated, we learn something shocking.
Isn't it a shame that his two fellow astronauts are dead?
Are you positive that they're dead? Don't be.
Wow, sounds like a setup for a TV series. So the three go into the house and it's Dr. Benita Cook who is sent to get some food while the men talk. Of course, this is the 70s. So it seems that things are bad for Stryker, but then a bit of hope.
Besides, Terra has a very active space program. Our crafts have great range and capabilities.
Are they ground controlled?
Only during blastoff. After that, the astronaut has complete control of his ship.
Then all I have to do is get aboard one.
Oh.
Neil thinks as long as he can take the place of one of the astronauts, he's on his way home. But is it that easy? Let me point out that the Earth is 93 million miles away from the Sun, and since Terra is on the opposite side of the Sun, that makes it 186 miles from Earth. That's a long way, and of course you couldn't go right through the Sun or even get close to it. So if you follow in the Earth's orbit, the path you would have to travel is 292 million miles. But since both Earth and Terra are moving, rotating around the Sun, Neil in the spaceship could just stand still and wait for the Earth to come to him. That would take a half a year. Now if he travels the opposite way, he could shave some time off of his journey, but not a lot, and he would still need a lot of oxygen and food to survive. But you know, it's the lack of gravity and exercise that would really take a toll on his body, Not to mention the question of what to do with his bodily waste. Ugh. And you know what? I'm thinking way too much about this, so let's get back to the movie. It's a good thing that Professor Macaulay knows so much about the space program and that he even has the technical manuals. Another amazing coincidence. The thing is, he also has a heart condition. You think this will become important later? Benita makes her feelings known to Neil before she takes off. But who's waiting for her at her apartment? Damn it, it's Benedict. But I'm sure everything will be just fine. Macaulay and Neil easily make it through security because why not? And they're on the rocket site. But Macaulay has another attack, and wouldn't you know it, he forgot his medicine. You know, if he needs his drugs to stay alive, you'd think he'd have them on his person. I'm just saying.
Oh, it's at home. I'll have to get it, Neil. Otherwise, I won't be any use to you when you need me the most. You go over that checklist again.
So, to make a long story short, after the professor shoots up, Benita arrives, and she's looked better.
I didn't tell him anything. I didn't.
Damn you, New World Order. She says she wants to see Neil one last time. Meanwhile, Neil is working to get on the rocket any way possible. But here's the thing, Benita, it seems, is working for the New World Order and following the professor. So why is Benita helping the New World Order?
The perfect order is kind and just.
A lobotomy. Well, that sucks. The professor is killed, and as we discussed, he was going to die anyway, so that's okay. Another chase, a gunfight, an explosive tank, and Neil is thought dead. Wait, is that him coming out of the water? Now we have a setup for an hour-long TV series.
Is it possible for me to get back to Earth?
Anything's possible. The fact that you got here in the first place proves that.
Now I'm thinking that if this had been picked up for a series, it would have been Neil wandering around the countryside, meeting people, helping to solve other people's problems, while at the same time being chased by Cameron in the Perfect New Order, and trying to get home. Sort of like the Incredible Hulk or the Fugitive. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the line he met himself, his doppelganger, on this twin planet. You know, this movie just screams early 1970s, and for that, I think it's great. You can tell from frame one that Bing Crosby Productions, or NBC, was only going to spend the minimum they had to get it made. I mean, I have this idea that for the helicopter scene, the writer wrote in the script this huge chase involving tons of cars and helicopters, maybe some tanks and roadblocks and all that, and the studio executives went up to him and say, you know, I think just one helicopter will be good enough. I could be wrong, that's just me guessing. Anyway, one actor I didn't talk about was Steve Franken. Steve lived from 1932 to 2012, and I only bring him up because he's one of those actors who you see all the time, but you never know his name. He's got that familiar face, you know. And he's been in a couple Rift films as well. He was in Time Travelers from '64 and Avalanche from '78. He was always working. He started in TV back in 1958, and he finished with Angels and Demons in 2009. A pretty successful career. Now it's time for today's obscure reference.
Shrinky Dinks.
I remember having Shrinky Dinks when I was a child. They were this thin, flexible plastic that you would color, and then when you put it into the oven, they would shrink and become thicker and harder, more rigid. But it would, of course, keep the design. It was pretty fun to play with. Anyway, let's see a commercial.
Then Mom bakes it, and right before your eyes, your shrinky-dink shrinks right down to size. Like magic. Fabulous. Fantastic. Then it's up to you what your shrinky-dinks do.
Shrinky Dinks collector sets. You can collect them all.
Shrinky dinks make the fun shine.
By Colorforms.
Now, according to Wiki, the original running time for this movie was 100 minutes. The version I watched, which I got off YouTube, was 93 minutes. And the MST version was only about 80 minutes. And I know there was one scene in which Neil attempts to escape early on, but can't get out of the locked door, was cut, and I don't know what else, because I didn't go through scene by scene. But anyway, again, if you want to watch the long version, it's on YouTube, but there's no reason really to do that. But now why don't we watch the best 2 minutes of Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Mike, how about a nice, thick, juicy...
Seizure!
Set off our communication.
Nice try, Astro Spy.
I smell a rat, a big, cummy rat.
Can I have some borscht, Dr. Stalin?
I won't tell anyone you're here.
Help! He's in here!
Well, I was headed for Florida, but I guess you ain't got one of those.
Funny how space looks a lot like Sacramento.
Yeah. Or Ojai.
Never mind the oboe. That always follows me around, you know.
And if it isn't Little Miss, I won't tell a soul.
Hey, did Tara just move for you?
You rude, impertinent, wonderful man!
Ooh.
A little candy for Grandpa.
You know, this is a visually compelling sci-fi flick. They must have used the same production designer from Blade Runner, I'd say.
Yeah, the influence of Fritz Lang's Metropolis is apparent in every frame.
Oh, clearly evident, absolutely.
Oh, time to
that was exciting.
That was really...
Wait for me. Well, come on back.
Oh, sorry.
Tripped over you there.
Always somebody at the door when I'm about to shoot up. If it's not one thing, it's another around here.
I'll make you a nice big punch. Oh, sorry.
70s theme show music, 70s theme show music. Next week on Mannix.
Last week on Cannon.
Coming soon on Heck Ramsey.
Previously on Beretta.
Tonight, a very special episode of T.J. Hooker.
This week on Masterpiece Theater.
The closer he gets,
the better she looks. Well, maybe not.
No. And so, standing erect, he emerged from the slime.
What happened?
From other planet. Thing crashed. Had girlfriend. Blew stuff up.
Capsized.
So next week, we're going to talk about a film called Time of the Apes from 1974. Or is it from 1987? You see, this is one of those Sandy Frank jobs. He took a TV show from Japan, edited it into a movie, that's why it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense, and threw it out to the American public as a feature film. Anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. It should be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of fun for me to try to pronounce some of these Japanese names, because that's always been an issue with me, but I'll do the best I can. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I sincerely do. You guys are great. I can't believe how many views I get. It's a thrill to me. And I'll be back next week. You stay healthy, take care, and all that good stuff that I say every week, but I mean it. And I've got to go out and rake, because I think a lot of leaves are starting to fall in the yard. Actually, I think I'll just mulch them with the mower this time, but probably within a week or two, I'll be out there with my rake or whatever. So take care. So long. Bye-bye.